INFJs are known for their deep emotional presence, quiet strength, and thoughtful way of dealing with others. They often stay in situations far longer than they should, giving people the benefit of the doubt, offering forgiveness, and hoping that things can change. But when an INFJ finally walks away, it's not a threat. It's not a game. It's the final warning. Walking away for an INFJ is not something they do easily. It comes after a long internal struggle, after they've tried everything to make things work, and after they've finally accepted that their energy, peace, and dignity are being sacrificed for a connection that no longer serves them. Most people don't realize how serious it is when an INFJ gets to that point, because INFJs often hide their frustration, their pain, and their slow disconnection till one day, it's over. No argument, no final talk, just silence. That silence isn't a request for attention. It's a signal that they're finished. This video breaks down the 6 deep reasons why the INFJ walking away is always the last line, the final moment, the warning no one comes back from. Because when they walk, they've already let go, and no words, apologies, or promises will pull them back in. Reason number 1, deep emotional sensitivity. At the core of every INFJ is emotional sensitivity that runs deeper than most people can imagine. They feel everything, sometimes too much. The emotions in a room, the unspoken energy between people, the subtle shifts in someone's tone or body language. INFJs pick it all up, and they carry it with them, quietly, constantly. This emotional depth allows them to care in ways others don't. It makes them incredible listeners, loyal friends, and emotionally aware partners. But it also means they get hurt more deeply, not by big, obvious betrayals, but by repeated small wounds that pile up over time. INFJs don't always speak up when they're hurt. They process it inside. They try to understand. They tell themselves the other person didn't mean it. They give second chances, third chances, and sometimes even more than that. But every time they get hurt, something inside them shifts, even if they don't say it out loud. It might be a dismissive comment, a broken promise, a joke that cuts too deep, a repeated behavior that shows a lack of respect. Each one alone might not be enough to make them leave, but together, they form a pattern. And once that pattern is clear, the INFJ's emotional tolerance starts to shrink. They don't lash out. They don't scream or demand change. They withdraw emotionally first. They get quiet. They observe more than they speak. And that silence means they're starting to protect themselves. When they walk away, it's not because of one bad moment. It's the buildup of emotional pain they've carried alone. People who don't understand INFJs often think everything was fine, right up until the goodbye. But for the INFJ, the relationship ended emotionally long before they physically left. This deep emotional sensitivity also means that when trust is broken, it doesn't heal easily. INFJs don't just feel disappointment, they feel it all the way through. It shakes their confidence in the relationship. And if the person keeps repeating the same behavior, the INFJ starts to lose hope. They might still be present, still kind, still polite, but inside, they've already started letting go. This emotional processing happens quietly. You won't always see the INFJ pulling back, but they are. They're thinking about what they've given, what they've lost, and whether or not it's worth staying. Their emotional radar also makes them pick up on insincerity. If someone's apology isn't real, the INFJ feels it. If someone is pretending to care, they know. They can't always explain how, but they know. And once they sense that someone doesn't truly value them, their emotional connection begins to break. This is what makes their walking away so final. By the time they leave, they've already lived through every emotion, every possible fix, and every potential hope. They don't leave with anger. They leave with clarity. Their sensitivity is what makes them love deeply, but it's also what forces them to walk away when they're being emotionally harmed. And when they finally do, it's not just a breakup or an ending. It's a protective act, a statement that says, "I'm done being hurt." That's why INFJ walking away is always the final warning, because it means they have already felt every part of the goodbye, and they're not coming back. Reason number 2, desire for authenticity. One of the things INFJs value most is authenticity. They crave realness in their connections, real emotions, real conversations, and real effort. They don't do well in relationships that are shallow, fake, or performative. When someone pretends to care, gives empty compliments, or avoids meaningful connection, the INFJ starts to feel disconnected. This desire for authenticity isn't about perfection. INFJs don't expect people to be flawless, but they do expect honesty. They expect emotional truth. They expect people to show up fully, not hide behind masks. In the beginning of a relationship, INFJs often give people the benefit of the doubt. They try to see what's underneath the surface. They listen with patience. They wait for vulnerability. But if it never comes, if the other person continues to stay closed off or emotionally dishonest, they begin to feel distant. What hurts INFJs most isn't conflict. It's fakeness. If someone lies to them, even about small things, it cuts deep. Because INFJs don't just hear the words, they feel the meaning. If someone is saying what sounds right but doesn't mean it, the INFJ knows. They also hate manipulation. INFJs can sense when someone is saying things to control, guilt, or twist a situation. And when they realize they're being played, they pull back fast. They may not say anything at first, but their emotional trust begins to fade. INFJs look for sincerity in actions, not just words. If someone apologizes but doesn't change, they see the pattern. If someone says they care but never shows up when it matters, the INFJ notices, and they remember. This deep need for authenticity also applies to themselves. INFJs won't stay in situations where they have to pretend. If they can't be honest, if they have to hide their feelings, or if their truth isn't welcome, they begin to shut down. When they walk away, it's not out of pride. It's out of alignment. They no longer feel like the connection reflects who they are, or who they want to be. And for INFJs, staying in something fake feels worse than being alone. They may try to fix it first. They might bring up how they feel, ask for deeper conversations, or express a need for honesty. But if nothing changes, if the other person continues to play a role instead of showing up real, they stop trying. The INFJ walking away at that point is not a threat. It's a return to self-respect. They're choosing truth over comfort. They're choosing peace over performance. And they're choosing real over routine. Authenticity is not a bonus for the INFJ, it's a requirement. And once they realize it's missing, the decision is already made. Reason number 3, overwhelming empathy. INFJs are often described as the most empathetic of all personality types. They don't just feel their own emotions, they absorb the feelings of others. Whether it's joy, sadness, stress, or tension, they feel it like it's their own. At first, this makes them compassionate, understanding, and emotionally generous. But over time, if their empathy isn't respected, it can become overwhelming. This deep level of empathy means INFJs often put others' needs above their own. They'll listen for hours, support someone through difficult times, and offer comfort even when they themselves are hurting. They feel what others need and try to meet those needs without being asked. But this constant giving comes at a cost. When someone takes advantage of that empathy by dumping emotional problems on them without concern, or by using their kindness without giving anything back, the INFJ starts to feel drained, not just tired but emotionally overloaded, like they're carrying the weight of everyone else, while no one carries theirs. At first, they'll make excuses. They're going through a lot. They don't mean to be selfish. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. But deep down, they know they're being used. They know their empathy is being treated like a resource, not a gift. And that realization is painful. INFJs don't need people to fix them, but they do need people to care, to ask how they're doing, to listen once in a while, to offer support in return. When that balance is missing, when it becomes a one-way street, the INFJ starts to retreat emotionally. They may still appear kind. They may still be there physically, but inside they're backing away. Not out of anger, but out of emotional survival. This is where people often misunderstand them, because the INFJ may not say they're overwhelmed. They may not explain that they're emotionally exhausted, but they are. And once they reach that point, the relationship starts to crumble. They have likely already given warnings, small ones, a tired tone, a quiet moment, a delayed response, maybe even a direct conversation asking for change. But if nothing shifts, the INFJ moves toward the exit silently. INFJs know they can't save everyone, but they still try. And when their empathy is stretched too far, When their needs are repeatedly ignored, they hit a limit. And once they hit it, they don't go back. Walking away in that moment is not coldness. It's not punishment. It's recovery. It's a way for them to stop the emotional bleeding and finally start healing. And that's why it's final. Because they didn't leave easily. They left because continuing to stay meant losing themselves. Reason number 4. Violation of personal boundaries. INFJs value boundaries deeply, even if they don't always express them clearly at first. These boundaries are about emotional safety, personal value, and respect. They're internal lines that protect the INFJ's peace, even if no one else can see them. At the start of a relationship, INFJs often give people the benefit of the doubt. They allow space. They forgive small mistakes. They understand that no one's perfect. But every INFJ has a line, and when someone crosses it again and again, it sends a clear message: I don't respect your limits. That's when the INFJ begins to pull away. Their boundaries can be subtle. They might need alone time to recharge. They might need honest communication instead of sugar-coated words. They might need people to respect their emotional pace. But when those needs are ignored, and especially when they're disrespected on purpose, the INFJ sees it as a warning sign. Some people test boundaries to see how much they can get away with. INFJs don't play that game. They don't argue about their limits, they just enforce them silently. It might look like less time together, less sharing, less emotional availability, and eventually less contact altogether. What makes this especially painful is that INFJs usually explain their needs before walking away. They give people the chance to adjust. They ask for space, honesty, or time. And when those requests are met with pushback, blame, or denial, the INFJ hears it loud and clear. They're being told that their needs don't matter. That's when the shift happens. They may not slam the door. They may not even say goodbye, but they leave emotionally. They stop giving access to their inner world. They stop trying to explain themselves. They stop hoping the other person will change. Walking away is a final boundary. It's the last one. The one that says, I'm not going to let this continue. And because INFJs take their peace seriously, they protect it at all costs. People who think they can violate INFJs' boundaries and get another chance don't understand what's really happening. INFJs don't shout about their limits, they act on them. And once they do, there's usually no return. Because it's not about one boundary being crossed. It's about trust being broken, and trust is something INFJs don't rebuild easily. Reason number 5. Perception of irreparable harm. INFJs are not quick to give up on people. They believe in growth. They believe in healing. And they're often the last ones to walk away from a broken connection. But even INFJs have a point of no return. And once they believe that harm has become permanent, they walk for good. This perception doesn't come from one bad fight or one difficult moment. It comes from patterns, from wounds that haven't healed, from repeated behaviors that show no sign of stopping. INFJs carry emotional memory. They don't forget how someone made them feel. They might forgive. They might even move past it on the surface. But the feeling stays deep inside, reminding them of what happened. They also observe everything. If someone says they'll change but doesn't, the INFJ notices. If someone continues to hurt them and expects forgiveness without effort, they remember. Over time, this creates a deep sense of hopelessness, not about the person, but about the possibility of repair. They start to ask themselves, is this ever going to change? Have I done everything I can? Is it time to let go? When the answer becomes yes, the INFJ accepts that the harm is too deep to keep trying. It's not about giving up, it's about finally acknowledging the truth. This moment can feel devastating. INFJs don't take it lightly. They grieve it before they ever act on it. But once they see the damage as permanent, they begin to prepare emotionally for the end. That's why, when they leave, they rarely come back. Because they've already processed it inside. They have already said goodbye long before the final step. They see the harm. They feel it. They understand what it means. And they decide, with sadness, but also strength, that they're done. Reason number 6. Final act of self-care. When an INFJ finally walks away, it's not about revenge. It's not about teaching someone a lesson. It's not about trying to make a dramatic exit or get attention. It's about something much deeper. Self-care. Quiet, INFJ spend so much of their time giving. They give understanding. They give time. They give emotional energy. They support people through breakdowns, confusion, and even disrespect. They often do this for far longer than they should. But when that giving starts to take more than it gives back, when the emotional scales tip too far, something inside the INFJ begins to shift. They realize they're exhausted. They realize they've lost parts of themselves trying to hold the relationship together. They realize they've been tolerating things that go against their values just to keep the peace. And that realization hurts. It's often not a big moment that triggers it. It's the quiet moment after everyone else has stopped talking. The silence where the INFJ reflects and finally admits, "This isn't healthy for me." That's when the decision is made, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Walking away becomes the most loving thing they can do for themselves. INFJs are used to being the emotional caretakers, the ones who understand, forgive, and hold space. But they also know that if they keep doing that for someone who doesn't respect them, it will destroy their peace. And for INFJs, peace is everything. So when they leave, it's not because they want to. It's because they have to. This act of self-care looks like silence. It looks like distance. It looks like disappearing from someone's life without warning. But inside, it's the INFJ finally returning to themselves. They might still care. They might still hope that person learns and grows. But they know they can't be the one to carry the weight anymore. They've done enough. People who don't understand INFJs think walking away is dramatic. But for the INFJ, it's often the only way left. They have tried everything else, talking, forgiving, adjusting, waiting. And now their well is empty. They might journal about it, cry about it, talk to one trusted person about it. But after that, they go quiet. They reclaim their space. They start doing things that make them feel whole again. And they stop pouring into places that left them empty. It's important to understand that INFJs don't walk away casually. They don't give up easily. They walk away after making the hardest decision of all. The decision to stop breaking themselves, to hold on to something broken. And once they've chosen themselves, there's no going back. Because the INFJ walking away isn't an escape, it's a declaration. A quiet but powerful statement. I matter too. When an INFJ walks away, it isn't impulsive, it isn't random, and it's never just about one moment. It's the final step in a long, silent process of emotional reflection, heartbreak, and self-preservation. They don't leave without reason. They leave because their emotional boundaries have been crossed too many times, because their needs have been ignored, because they've carried the weight of the relationship alone for far too long. Each of the 6 reasons, deep emotional sensitivity, the need for authenticity, overwhelming empathy, boundary violations, irreparable harm, and the final act of self-care, builds toward one undeniable truth. When an INFJ walks, it's over. They're not coming back. They have already done the work, felt the pain, and chosen peace. So if an INFJ ever begins to pull away, if they grow quiet, distant, or still, it's not a phase. It's a signal, a warning, the last one you'll get. And once they walk out, the door behind them won't just close. It'll lock. Because the INFJ doesn't walk away to hurt anyone. They walk away to finally protect themselves.